Hi, welcome back to Lakeside Quilt Making Arts. I'm glad you're here. This is a Friday video. I don't know when you're watching this, but I put out a Friday video that every week that recaps what we've done, what projects we've been involved with the past week, starting from Sunday through Thursday. So I'll just jump right on in because your time is valuable. And I'll try not to be too long-winded because this is basically just a recap. But it's a great way to quickly get a feel for what all is going on at Lakeside Quilt Making Arts. And that's what it's been about this week. I feel like it's not just been about the art of quilt making, but it's been about the art of juggling time. I've been out of the studio a lot in the past several days. And so I've had I just had shortened amount of time in the studio. Therefore, I've had less produce each time that I've been in the studio. But we've still gotten stuff done, and I'm proud of what's gotten done. I really, truly am. We start off on Sunday. That is our slow stitch video. That's where we're doing hand stitching. And the project is the quilt shows Pick a Petal, which I always want to say Pick a Pearl, but it is not Pick a Pearl. Pick a Petal is Jen Kingwell's block of the month with the quilt show. And it's coming along nicely. Barbara Black did her new instruction video to give us some instruction for doing this month's block, which is the second block in the block of the month series. It's the third month of the block of the month series, but it's the second block because we started off with the center medallion, the center square, I guess you might call it. And I'd had some difficulty with one of my blocks that I had produced for block one. And so I wanted to try Barbara's technique. I did. I didn't get to finish that block before I had to quit for the day. So I'm still probably going to get that done this coming Saturday. And so that will be shown in the Sunday video coming up. What I wanted to do is I wanted to get that first block done in Barbara's technique. That way I could get a good feel for the techniques and before I moved on to block two. So as soon as I finish up that one block, I'll be moving on to block two. You know, that quilt's been kind of an emotional one because I have so much heart poured into what I believe this quilt represents for me and what I want it to be. It's going to be, for me, it's a legacy piece for my granddaughter, my daughter's first child. And I really want that legacy of working with your hand to be something that she has a piece from me that she's proud of. So I want to be proud of it. And I know that even if it has mistakes, she'll be proud of it. Well, I hope she will. So I wanted it to move as quickly as all the other projects are, but I had a snag with it and I had to figure out how to overcome that snag and come to terms with which direction I wanted to produce these. I'm still doing it all by hand, but I chose to follow Barbara Black's technique for all the remaining, there are 20 blocks of block one. I had 6 prepared by Jen Kingwell's process of constructing the block. And I will finish those 6 Jen Kingwell's way, so I don't have to recut those. And then I will do the rest of them Barbara Black's way. It goes together much quicker in Barbara's technique, much quicker. The next video would be our Monday release video, and I call that our Moda Monday because we're working on the blockheads, the quilt-along that Moda Fabrics puts out. And that's a weekly block, and I believe it's 30 blocks. It goes all the way through July, I think. So we're on block 10 coming up. The block I did this past week was the Ohio Star, a much simpler block, and I was kind of grateful for it because it was another day where I didn't have as much time in the studio. Because it was easier, I did it as a 6-inch block. So that presented me then with an opportunity to try to think about the layout of where I would put 6 inches. And I was way premature to really be thinking because there's just a lot of blocks left to make before you start really thinking about the setting. But for me, I start the process early on. I want to just get familiar with the color distribution, how the different blocks are pairing up and what secondary designs they're creating and that kind of thing. So that was an interesting exercise. What I found out is since it was a lighter block, the way I had constructed it, primarily a lighter block, which was intentional, because the last block was a 12-inch block and it had a lot of deep saturation in it. It just kind of married up better up next to one of the ones that was lighter. But I've been staring at it all week. I kind of feel like it needs to be next to the other block that is also lighter. But we'll see. We've got a lot of blocks left. This next block for Moda Monday is a 16 patch scrappy star. I think it should be pretty straightforward. I'm definitely going to do the 12-inch one on this because it's a 16 patch. The center of that star is a 16 patch, and then you have the outside, that's the star points. So haven't even looked at I've got it printed out, but I haven't even gotten off the printer. The pattern is still on the printer. So I don't know how small those 16 patches are, but I imagine they're small enough that I don't want to make 16 of them for a 6-inch block. Gosh, what would they be? A 1/4 inch or something? I don't know. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday videos had a common thread. It was the unicorn quilt, the miniature tiny quilt that I'm doing as a gift for my granddaughter, and it's preempting other regularly scheduled programming. So normally on Tuesday, we do something on the technical side of quilt making. And because last week we did the sewing machine, this time we did a DIY. I thought I had it here on my table, but a DIY design board and some pinning techniques, just little things like that. I'm trying not to get too nerdy on that. I still want this to be a light and easy discovery process. As I mature and I get more true skills, I'll probably put together more produced pieces that kind of explains to us some differences and some learning curves that I've gone through and offer that information back to you. But because I'm a newbie, I have just gone through that very beginning stage of being a quilter. I kind of know what was really important for me to really learn. So I'm trying to share some of those smaller, easier things that might be enjoyable for a beginning quilter. So, so it was the pinning and the design board, and then what I started to do with that on that day, that video, is to take the unicorn quilt, the top itself, and started slicing and dicing it. I think actually that started the week before. I wanted to make it more proportional for the size of the unicorn that was going to be thread painted on top of it. And it's actually not thread painting that I'm going to do. It's probably more better defined as thread sketching, because it's going to be an outline with some shading and that kind of thing. And this is going to be a secondary attempt, and my first attempt was in the 90s. So I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to be winging it, but stay tuned. We're going to be doing it all next week. Whatever it gets done is going to get done next week. And I can't wait. Part of me wants to set aside these other videos so I can just, get right in there and do it and knock it out. But the 2 quilt-alongs, I want to stay married to doing those. And if I am preempting any programming, this is programming of the other days. The quilt-alongs, I don't want to get too far behind. I've had breaks in the schedule already for different reasons. Like I didn't even start Moda Blockheads until they were already, 4 or 5 into it. And I just don't feel like with the quilt shows, Block of the Month, Jen Kingwell's Pink a Petal, I don't feel like I have been as prolific as others. I know I haven't actually, because of I've seen one other person's, and I'll show you that later in this video. I will show you, we will do the very beginning of a quilt parade. Please start sending me your quilts so I can show more than one person's, because right now I have one person, and that is Jody. I don't know if I'm supposed to give her last name. Jody sent me pictures of her block of the month for Jen Kingwell, and she is doing a fabulous job, and she is knocking it out. So I know I have visual proof that other people are far more prolific than I am, but I literally cannot do anything else besides what I'm doing. Taking time to film and taking time to edit takes a lot of time, and then add any other life events that have to happen along the way too. There's just no way I could be producing any more than I am. So I am not feeling like I am inadequate. I just know that I have to pace myself differently. I just know that I can't have those expectations that I can produce on the same level as somebody else. I am also new. That's another component to this. But I am making progress, and I'm making progress on a lot of different things. Taking time to get my studio shaped up last week, oh, that was really helpful to me. But again, it kind of, put the production of the block of the month at a bit of a snail's pace. But I'm going to be getting on top of that. I'm not straying away from these blocks, from the block of the month or the quilt along. I'm committed to them. So hang tight with me. And I do appreciate your patience as I've slipped this unicorn quilt in and it's kind of taken over our Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday programming. It's and you guys have been watching them and commenting, and it's been really helpful. You've been encouraging to me, been delightful to see, because I was afraid that you guys might think, oh gosh, she's all over the place. Well, maybe. I do have a little bit of a squirrel complex. I see a squirrel and I got to follow it, but not too bad. Like, it's got to have a legit reason, because the things I'm doing, the comfort and the waiting quilts on Wednesdays, and then the quilting therapy on Thursdays, those quilts, those specific quilts that I'm doing on those days, mean a lot to me as well. I had committed to myself that my granddaughters would get handmade textile things from me on their birthdays. And so I've got one of them's birthday coming up. I'm running out of time, so I had to preempt something. And you know what? We will be getting back to the comfort and the waiting hashtag Avery quilts and the Mars quilt on the Thursday therapy. We would definitely be getting back to them, because they do mean something to me, and I do appreciate your patience while we do that. So what we did though with the unicorn quilt is, it was 2-inch blocks. I forget now how wide it was initially, but once I sliced it and diced it and restitched it, it turned into a 12 3/4 by 14 3/4. And I needed it to grow just a little bit. So yesterday's video was about adding some. I had a few more the charm pieces and charm squares. No, sorry, they're not charm, mini charms. And so I just added some more, created some more material, sliced it and diced it, and restitched it, and then added it to that quilt top. And if you look closely, you can kind of see that it was added, because it incorporated some more of the darker mini squares I had been leaving out of the top. But it's okay, like, especially once I get unicorn thread sketched on top of it, that will all blend in. I really love the vibrancy and boldness of that quilt top, but mostly I love the back side of it. I think it's just lovely. Really do. Can't wait to figure out how to do this unicorn. So I will take you guys with me, and just know right now that I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to be doing it together. When I'm saying slicing and dicing, I'm referring to the fact that I took those 2-inch squares, that top that was made out of a bunch of 2-inch squares, and which way did I go first? Well, I went vertical. So I cut all of them. I took a slice all the way up, all of them, an inch. There were 2 inches, so I went in the middle, so an inch on either side. And then I mix and match, and I restitched, and that shrunk it down. And but then what I did is I went in and I diced it, is what I'm calling it. I sliced it horizontally, doing the same thing at the 1-inch mark, and then rearranged those rows and stitched it back together. And that's why I ended up with 3/4-inch squares. Now, in yesterday's video, I was talking a lot about how the border needs to be proportional. And I was thinking in the terms of, like a quilt for your bed would have a 12-inch block, and then your border might be 4 inches or 6 or 8 inches, and how you would treat those different borders if you pick those different sizes. But when I was thinking that way, I was totally not considering the fact that even though my units of this quilt are 3/4-inch blocks, it doesn't necessarily fairly represent proportionally to a quilt. Because if you wanted to translate each of these 3/4-inch blocks to a 12-inch block, then this would be a giant quilt. So what I'd have to do to try to get some kind of mathematically proportional border size, is translate the overall top size to that of a quilt, and then I'd figure out my fractions of those blocks. I'm sure that's very complicated to try to understand. It's hard to try to articulate it. I just wanted to say that how I was describing it yesterday probably wasn't the best. So if you want to have that conversation with me, I am happy to make a video about it, but I don't want to bog this one down with that information. I just do have more thoughts about how to do that. That would be more of a fair representation of proportions. And the other thing about borders, it hit me either last night or this morning. If I had more of this, of those mini charms, what I would do for my border is I would put like a 1/4 inch white around it, and then I would do piano keys in that multicolored fabric that were like 3/4 inches by 1.5 inches, and do that all the way around. I think that would look really good for this quilt. But I don't have but just a few. I'm looking at them on the ironing station. There's just a little bit of them, and not enough to do anything with. And I need to stop building my top, just kind of knock it out and get on to worrying about the unicorn and figure out how to actually make him, and then how to make him look like something that is recognizable to somebody else. Again, I really do appreciate you guys having the patience with me this week, as my productivity has been a little bit down because I haven't been in the studio as much, even though I got stuff done. Got to give myself credit where it's due. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to, and it's all been kind of focused on the unicorn quilt. And also, I've been having to do it in the evening more, and so haven't had as great light as I would like to have for our videos. And that's just the way it's going to be. Fortunately, we're getting into longer days, and so I can have longer work days and still have some natural light coming in. I have studio lights in here, but when the room is dark, it's not enough. I don't know. It's almost like there's a black hole somewhere in this room that just kind of sucks it all up. There's not any overhead lighting. I have some thoughts about how I want to handle my lighting, and I want to get a good plan for that and before I start executing it. So I'm not going to make any knee-jerk reactions. I'm just going to rely on our days getting longer for right now. So let's move on to the important part, the beginning of our weekly quilt parade with Jody's block of the month for Pick a Petal. I got Jody's email just minutes before I started editing the video for last weekend's slow stitching Sunday video. It just made my day because I got to share it timely with you guys, but I didn't get to talk about it adequately. I am blown away by how prolific she's been. She's gotten the center medallion done, and she's gotten all 20 of the block 1 done, and I forget how many it was of the fan blades. I think she said majority of those already. That's for the outer border. Isn't that amazing? She reports too about her design board. I was remarking about them that she's got so much wall space that she could put them up. They're each a 4x8 pink home insulation board that she bought a flannel sheet for, and then her husband attached them to the wall. So she's got 8 foot by 8 foot design board. I'm so jealous of that right there. So kudos to Jody, and thank you, Jody, for sending in your pictures. I'm just so glad that we could get our first quilt parade launched. Thank you very much for making that happen. Guys, I had a little conversation with Jody and found out that she's got an interesting story, and that witch that you see on her design board was what prompted our conversation. I'm going to talk to Jody and see if we can't share more. I'd like to share more about Jody and about that witch. It's very interesting. Stay tuned. But this part of the video is about this people that have inspired me. Also, I'd like it if you could tell me people that inspire you, either in the comments or email me at lakesideqma@gmail.com. I want to know who I should be listening to and learning from. And also, if there's somebody else that I need to present to our viewers here, maybe they don't know about them. And, I'm still fairly new to the quilting community as far as, participating in it. I've been a viewer of it for a year and a half now. But as far as participating in it, I'm brand new. And as far as viewing, I was probably pretty myopic. I think that's what the word is, whenever you just kind of have a few places where you look for information. I was definitely looking at the Fat Quarter Shop. I learned a lot from Kimberly, Missouri Star, the Quilt Show, tons, Erica Arndt. And in these last several months, I can't think of her name right now, Karen with Just Get It Done Quilts. And I may be leaving somebody off, I don't know. And then these last few months, I've been watching Kathy with the Catbird Quilts. And those have been kind of like my mainstay. I'm sure there's been others, but as far as mainstays, them. So I really wanted to reach out. I started doing that in these past several weeks, maybe last couple of months. And I have watched some of Dave's Crafts Room before, but not all of them. Like I haven't like binged on him, but I really enjoy him a lot. And he's one of the ones I want to start with talking about this week. He just did is it called the double wedding ring? And it was such a fun video to watch. And seeing him tackle something that's as complex as that with his attitude, I just want to be an audible, like loud and, for him to be able to hear it from over here, to be a cheerleader for him, that he's got a great attitude. He just like, I ain't afraid of no fabric. So I saw a comment where somebody says that needs to be on a t-shirt, I ain't afraid of no fabric. And I get it. That's a great attitude. It really is. So he did it. He knocked out a double wedding ring quilt. Go and look at his last video. It's amazing. So anyway, I looked at him some, but I hadn't like binged on him because there was only so much bandwidth. While if you're trying to produce and learn, if you learned a little bit here and then you're actually producing, there's only so much bandwidth, right? And I was drinking from a fire hose as far as what all I was trying to learn and get up to speed on producing quilts. Plus, as I've shared, I had 2 big surgeries last year. And they were biggies and they took a lot of time away, but quilting really was my therapy. It got me through a lot, and having it to come back to got me through the recovery of the surgeries too. It was, there's a lot to be said for when you hear people say quilting is my therapy. There's a lot to be said for that. It can be said in respect to it really is your creative muscles being worked out, and that's true. I use that term all the time with our Thursday videos. It's our Thursday therapy where we're working that creative muscle. But I have heard many people talk about how it's helped them through a medical crisis or a mental health crisis. And it's difficult to go through a medical health crisis without having some mental health going along with it too, because it is trying on the human psyche to go through weeks, months, years of debilitating illnesses that you don't know where they're going to end up. And having something that pulls you out of that and works a freeing part of the brain that really works on your creativity, it soothes the soul. It's very regulating to the mind and the body, I believe, and very healthy. So if you have anybody who's out there who's suffering from something, whether it's physical, mental, whatever it is, maybe they need to pick up a hobby. It may just be quilting. So with that plug for quilting out of the way, the next person I want to talk about is like, I can't believe that this person was interviewed on the Quilt Show. And I don't know who to give credit to, Alex and Ricky from the Quilt Show or for the artist herself, but because I think all three and everybody at the Quilt Show actually has to get credit because it's a joint effort there. But their interview of, what's her name? Sue Sherman, and she's a Canadian. She's a thread painter. It's like, I'm diving into this unicorn quilt in my head, trying to figure out how am I going to do this unicorn? How am I going to do this unicorn? And what do? They have a fabulous thread painter on their show, and she shows these steps. And I was just flabbergasted on Sunday when I started to watch it. I've got to go back and rewatch it and figure out what part of it will translate to what I'm doing here on this little tiny quilt. But I think it's going to be one that I'm going to be rewatching a lot of it, because thread painting is something I want to do more of. Not necessarily something that looks like it's embroidered, but not all thread painting is that way. And not all of hers looks that way, but there's like sections of it where you think, okay, that looks like an embroidery, but it's not done with an embroidery machine. That's for sure. It is actually thread painted, and there's so many techniques, so many nuances to it. And I can also see where I might need to go rob a bank and to buy all the different threads I'm going to need. And I watched last night. This one's going to catch you by surprise. And it was a video the video channel name is going to tell you who it is. It's Sewing with Nancy's Legacy. That's the name of the channel. And so I can't recall her last name right now. You know, she was on in the 90s and 2000s, and I think through the 20 teens. I didn't know, but I guess she has passed. And it was a great, almost an hour long video that's on that channel that I watched last night. And I just have so much respect for her. Like, I knew she was great, but when she was first on air, I was busy with kids and growing kids and raising kids and all that kind of stuff. And I had already packed up my quilting stuff, and had put that into my mind, like, I'll do that whenever I got more time in my life. So I was not a student of hers, but I knew she existed, and I knew she was, you know, doing quality content. Well, in that show, watching about her um, life and about her growing up years, and you know, really what formed the person she is, and her journey of getting into the business that she got into, and how, you know, how she and her husband did it. And it was very interesting, and shows she deserves the respect of others still learning from her. She's still a teacher through that video, and through the videos of her um, teaching and giving tutorials. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. That's why video is so awesome. And that's why YouTube is so awesome. So who all was on my list? Oh, goodness. Now, this was on our list last week, but Kathy from the Catbird Quilts. I'm telling you, if you have not tuned into her channel this week, you are missing out. She's been doing a series on QuiltCon, and she does such a wonderful job. So I believe it's each day she's doing a different category. I think today was the applique one, and yesterday was maximalism, and then before that was minimalism, and that there's a scrappy one. I think there's a modern one. Just different, all these different categories that QuiltCon had. She did a series of a separate video on, and they've been released starting last week, and they're still ongoing. And I'm telling you, I'm just drooling watching them, and partly because she does such a great job of presenting them. I don't know if she has any kind of journalism degree, but if she ever wants to get out of pharmacy work or get out of quilting, she needs to go and work at a news station or any kind of journalism role, because she's excellent in front of a camera, talking so eloquently and calmly and pleasingly and precisely about these quilts. It's very much well worth going to watch. I'm going to close with all that. I hope that there's something in this that inspires you to max out your days and get something done. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just move that needle. Spend some time with your hobby, even if it isn't quilting. All right, my friends, we'll see you. See you soon. Bye.